Let's move on now to the Seattle Seahawks and our 2023 NFL Draft review. But before we get into that, if you have not already, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and ring that bell to get notified when new Seahawks content gets released. Ryan and I, we have a goal of getting to 2,000 subscribers by the beginning of the NFL season, and that means a bunch of new Seahawks content coming out leading into the 2023 season with previews, predictions, and also potential trades that they might be able to make, and other general NFL content about who the Seahawks will be playing. So be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell to get notified when we create new videos. And Ryan, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
The Seattle Seahawks, it's funny, the entire leading up to where like they got to address the trenches on both sides. So they're going to be doing Tyree Wilson, or they're going to be doing this, or they maybe are they going to do Jalen? Are they going to do Jalen Carter? Then it's like, no, the GMs probably and the organization is not going to want to take someone with questionable character. They've done that in the past. Mm-hmm. And then they picked Devon Witherspoon and JSN, and we're sitting there on draft night and we're like, we really like those players.
No, yeah.
These guys, the Seahawks seem to do this a lot, but they solidify their strengths with through these draft picks. And so starting out like with Devon Witherspoon, yes, they took Tyreek Woolen last year. Great rookie, had a great season. You'll think that they'll probably address other needs, but no, let's just go get a second great cornerback as well.
Yeah.
And pair them up. And so I really like that combination.
No, I do too, and I think they complement each other really well. One is 6'4" and a freak athlete. The other one's 5'11" and also a freak athlete. But the Devon Witherspoon can play inside, outside. He can mirror receivers really, really well. And Tariq Woolen can, take people out of games on the outside. So I think that's a really, really solid cornerback duo there. And then the Jackson Smith and Jigba pick, I think they are going to start preparing for life without Tyler Lockett as he is getting up in age. But for this season, you have 3 stud wide receivers. So I think that's a fantastic trio. They all complement each other really, really well. And then, I think Geno Smith, those 2 tackles started playing really well. And then they drafted Anthony Bradford a little bit later. We'll get into that pick as well as a center. So I think this class for them with these first 2 picks already put it above average. So and that's one of the things. It was like it didn't address, I think, their immediate needs, which was the trenches, but they did address some of that in free agency with Evan Brown signing from the Detroit Lions, offensive guard, and then Draymond Jones as well, the defensive tackle. So, or defensive end, it's just defensive lineman. Let's just put it that way. He can kind of move all around. So I get so they did address it a little bit. I think maybe they could have done a little bit more in day 1 and in day 2, like moving on now to the Derek Hall pick. And we were talking about before, it's like technically it says defensive end, it says offensive linebacker. He's like that now, modern day edge rusher. Linebacker, not offensive linebacker.
Dang, I did it again. I did that in another video. Sorry. Anyways, but it's like pseudo addressing the defensive line a little bit because he's that modern day edge rusher, but also can go back into coverage. So you can count it, not count it. Like I think it's kind of on that fine line. I would have liked to have seen them address the trenches more on day 1. However, though, with Derek Hall and then also Zach Charbonnet, it's like they got 4 really good players. They got 4 really good players. So.
No, so Derek Hall, I think, was a little bit of a reach. I expected him to go a lot later in this round. If they'd taken him at 52 or traded back from 52 and then taken him, I felt like that would be better value there. They did. So I think that was a slight reach. But again, I think he comes in and he contributes day 1. Zach Charbonnet, their next pick, I like a lot. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me considering they drafted Kenneth Walker pretty high last year, but they have been known to consistently address that running back room. They drafted Rashad Penny and then I believe another running back in like round 2 or 3 the next year. So that's not an uncommon occurrence for them. So I like what they did there, and then they solidified that running back room because Kenneth Walker did have some injury issues last year. So
and Zach Charbonnet, he could have been a bell cow back for any team that drafted him. So they can rotate them in based off just rest. like and splits snaps up, so then they're fresh all throughout the season. Both of them can come in a third down. They could do shotguns with 2 running backs in the backfield because they both can catch the ball. So it's like for fantasy, it sucks for both of their values.
Yeah,
But if you're talking about for the team themselves, it makes sense. Like if you think about it, it makes sense. I probably wouldn't have done it because this running back class had good value as like skipping down now to Kenny McIntosh. I think Kenny McIntosh complements Kenneth Walker well. Like he can come in on third down and be consistent. You know what you're going to get out of him. But that being said, though, Charbonnet though does give you just an extra like level in that running back room and overall depth. If Walker does go down, then you still got Charbonnet who can do the exact same thing, and vice versa. So let's move on though now to the 4th round, where they start to address the interior on both sides with their next 2 picks, and then just the trenches in general on those next 4 picks. And so, Ryan, what is your take on both their 4th round picks with Anthony Bradford and Cameron Young?
Yeah, so I like Anthony Bradford. I think that's a solid pick. They needed to address that interior offensive line as well as add depth, like to the trenches as a whole. And so I think they did that positionally with Cameron Young. I don't necessarily like the player as much. I'm not sure who was around at that point, but I just think they could have maybe taken a better player. I thought he would go in the latter half of day 3, but I do like that they addressed both of those positions. So, and then I like this Mike Morris pick a lot. I thought Mike Morris would be taken on day 2, get him here in the middle of the 5th round. I think that's really solid value as well. So, and he's a bigger defensive end. He
fits that more traditional defensive end. It would have been interesting to see going back to Cameron Young. Isaiah McGuire was available. He went a couple picks later to the Browns. Then there was several other defensive ends that were taken. So if they wanted him, if they liked him,
well, he's a D tackle.
No, I know. But then if there's another defensive tackle that maybe you would have liked, like that would have fit their fancy. What pick was that? 151.
And it's day 3, like late round 4. So like I'm not gonna discredit them a whole lot for taking a player that they like. I just felt that they probably could have drafted a more solid one. So
well, and you know what's interesting too, the only defensive tackle that was taken in the 5th round was Jacqueline Roy, who was taken before their pick. So so it actually seemed like Cameron Young was one of the last defensive tackles taken, of the next couple of rounds. So it's good that they got him there. So then they can also get Mike Morris to address the defensive end. And then what about their next 5th round pick?
Olusegun Oluwatimi. You just don't want to say the name?
No, I can't say the name. Our Seahawks videos have done decently well. So I think if you're a repeat viewer of Seahawks videos, you can understand. And if you're new, I really struggle to pronounce names. It is by no means on purpose at all. I just don't know why I cannot pronounce it. So Ryan handles most names that are not
straightforward.
That a 3rd grader can't read. And that's no offense to them. That's just an insult on myself because I can't read.
I mean, I like that pick. So he had a rough-ish week at the Senior Bowl. Didn't really stand out in any way, but wasn't necessarily like horrible. And so I like that pick there. I think again it adds good depth to that offensive front. So and then Jarek Reed and Kenny McIntosh I think are good value. I don't know a whole lot about Jarek Reed, but at the end of the 6th round, you're really drafting for traits. So
he played safety for New Mexico.
Yeah, thanks. But with that, let's get into our grades here for this class. So another rarity here. I have a better grade for the Seahawks class than Tyler. And if you've watched any of the other videos in this draft series, I've been pretty stingy with my grades. And so I really like what they did in this class. This was one of my more favorite classes. And Tyler, I'm curious as to why you gave them an A-.
So I've done this in other ones, and I'll say I graded all of them on a curve. So I had one A+, my favorite grade, my favorite class, and then kind of went down from there. I had a couple A's, and then Seahawks, I can confidently say were my 5th or 6th favorite class. And the reason why I give them an A-, I've done this before, is like I personally would have addressed the interior sooner,
Mhm.
but I like having strong offensive and defensive lines. I think that's where you win games. And so that's where I guess maybe that's a little personal mark, the downward, and maybe that's not fair because I mean Devon Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Njigba overall were probably, you could say, top 10 prospects in the entire draft. It may be top 15, so to say. And to get them on your team is huge value. But then they didn't address the interior until day 3, so then there definitely is potential questions and some potential downfalls of that. Let's say if the offensive and defensive line may get hurt, and then these draft picks don't work out, then now you're sticking with a poor offensive line. And they had, I think, the 27th ranked offensive line last year, according to PFF. Yeah, so I would have thought that they would have taken that a little higher priority. But that also being said, though, I cannot knock the players that they got on those first 2 days. And I even like some of the players that they got on day 3. So that's where I give them just a little bit. And I've done that with other ones where I don't like who they picked, but I understand why they did them. So it's like I'm going to trust the NFL scouts, obviously, a lot more than my personal opinion on that. It's still a great draft class. These guys are going to come in. Their secondary is locked down now. Great receiving room now, great running back room. I think a lot of upside with some of their day 3 picks as well. So I just would have liked to have seen them maybe do it a little bit more, but that's just a personal preference of mine.
Yeah. So I gave them an A because I think you look at the number of contributors that they got. So Devon Witherspoon, Jackson Smith, and Njigba, immediate day 1 starters, right? And then Derek Hall, Zach Charbonnet, I think are contributors immediately, right? So your first 4 picks are going to come in and offer at least some value, right? And contribute. And then Anthony Bradford, I'm not so sure on Cameron Young if he will really contribute this year, but I think Anthony Bradford, Olusegun Oluwatimi add really solid offensive line depth. And then Mike Morris, I think, will be a rotational edge guy. And I think Kenny McIntosh is kind of going to become their third down back. So I think from rounds 1 to 7, they got people who can come in and really contribute. And so I just really like that. I think if you add up the number of contributors per draft class, they're probably in the top 10, maybe top 5 of the league in this draft class. So I like what they brought in. As far as 2023 goes, I'm really excited for this team. I think the sky's the limit for them. Geno Smith, if he can come back and have a year close to what he had last year, I think definitely looking at a playoff berth, possible winning a couple playoff games, and maybe potentially, I think, winning that division. We're about to go over San Francisco's draft right after this, but I didn't really like their class. I think they have a lot of questions coming off of that season last year. And so I think this division is a 2-horse race.
Yeah. Well, and to be frank, that's not my concern for the 49ers. It's going to be who's lining up behind center for the 49ers. Yeah. So we still don't really know that. The 49ers class was not good, but I mean, it's also when you're picking 99th. It's not,
that's your first pick.
It's not going to be that great. But in general, though, for the Seahawks, I've been honestly thinking about that on who I would pick to win the division. And the more I think about it, the more and more the Seahawks definitely get closer. Like, it's not a sure thing with San Francisco. Absolutely not a sure thing.
No, it's not at all. So I like what the Seahawks have going for them into 2023. I think that's going to wrap up this draft recap there. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment down below on what you thought of the Seahawks draft. Who was your favorite pick? Did you love the draft? Did you hate it? Let us know down below. And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.